Hello, everyone. This is Nicholas Peter Ugero. It's been a long time since I've made any sort of content, and I'm very happy to be back. And even more happy that I'm able to invite Danny and Vanessa of the Sovereign Lovestream back on my channel. I very much appreciate you guys coming back on. Thank you so much. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank you so much for the invitation. We're super happy to be here, happy to talk to you again. Yeah.
Yeah, and we haven't made any content in quite a while as well. I think the spring equinox was the last time we did a show. So you're like inspiring us to get back into the flow of doing some
Awesome.
content creation as well.
Yeah, funny how that works out, I guess. Yeah, because a lot of stuff's going on in my life. Just to at least fill everyone in, just for like a quick minute. I was getting in jobs. I was doing a lot of working. I was doing landscaping, doing some construction stuff. Just trying to keep busy. I was avoiding a lot of my pitfalls in terms of addictions with gaming and all that stuff. But I also still had some demons that I wasn't working on, and the girl that I was dating, she wasn't working on anything either. So we kind of stayed stagnant, and trauma ensued from that. And so since July, I've been very much in the negative space. I've been just kind of stagnant, not doing anything for myself, doing a lot of gaming and smoking of weed, and not doing anything really practical, doing some stuff, but not really too much. So for me, it's been very difficult these past few months. A lot of dark places I've been at. So especially not making any content, I've been on my case a little bit about that, not really feeling like I have a purpose. So this has been, out of all of the people I could have chosen to have on my channel right now, it's these two, because they're very much into the self-help space and being open and working on your traumas and being honest with yourself and self-love. And that's exactly what I need in my life right now. And hopefully this can inspire not just me and give myself a good therapeutic kind of session, but hopefully anyone that's watching this right now or in the future can definitely benefit from this. And hopefully I can have them on more so, and other people on that are in this kind of field, because this is definitely something that's near and dear to my heart at this current moment. So how have you guys been since you guys have made your last video, your last podcast? Have you guys been keeping busy? Anything exciting? Because I know, Danny, you were talking about a store that you guys were looking into.
Yes. Well, we were about to open a ceremonial kava and cacao bar. But the COVID restrictions in New York City are very strict. Right now, you can't even go into a restaurant or a bar without being vaccinated. So because neither of us are vaccinated, we won't be getting the vaccine. We put that on pause for now. We've been doing private ceremonies. Sometimes we'll take and do a ceremony at somebody's house with either kava or cacao. But for now, the store is on hold until we see how this pandemic situation, I don't know, this may be the new normal, and we may never be able to open this store unless we decide to get vaccinated. But at the moment, we're just focused on ourselves, on doing our own work, and doing private ceremonies for people.
Awesome. Well, that makes me definitely curious. What do those ceremonies entail? Like, what's the main purpose of them, and how's the reactions been? Have you been able to do a lot of them?
We've done quite a few. For us, so both cacao and kava have different energies. Cacao is a very heart-opening drink, medicine. And when we do a ceremony with cacao, we set up a ceremonial space. Everybody comes with the intention of opening up, of allowing whatever emotions to come through. We serve the cacao. We have a little bit of conversation, and we just open up the space to see what flows through. Every ceremony looks different. It depends on everybody's intention. The same thing with kava. Kava is has a little bit more of a relaxing vibe to it. It's been used by indigenous cultures for conflict resolution. So when we're coming in with those intentions, of course, different things will come up for different people. But so far, everybody that has attended any of our ceremonies seems to have a fantastic time. We open up. It creates a space of vulnerability.
Yeah, for sure. this can kind of launch us, I guess, into the discussion of shadow work, because I was at a cacao ceremony, not that one we were facilitating, but it was facilitated by another brother of mine. And it was kind of unexpected for me because we drink cacao fairly often. Coming out of the ceremony, and I was actually camping in Portland, or outside of Portland on the coast, and I was walking with one of my friends back to our campsite, and all of a sudden, just all this emotion started coming out of me. Stuff from when I was 16 years old, some stuff with my ex-wife that we had dated when we were kids, and I just all of a sudden started to purge. I started to talk to this guy about all these things that just started flowing out of me from the heart opening aspect of cacao, and it was a really beautiful experience. I just started weeping, basically crying for how hurt my 16-year-old self was. And so it was very unexpected, but it was very powerful at the same time. And the brother held space for me, and he just allowed me to purge and just really empathized. And that was it. It was like I let go. I released it. And it was like another layer, because I felt like, I had already dealt with this, I thought. But sometimes things come out in layers. You may have like what seems like a major epiphany about something, and then I don't know, a year later or a couple of years later, as in this case, just another layer of emotion comes out. Maybe I maybe realized what had happened. I had some issues with self-esteem when I was a teenager, as most of us probably do, and my ex-wife's parents and even my parents were kind of reinforcing that I was unworthy. They basically were saying that my ex-wife was like, they were putting her on a pedestal and saying that, I wasn't worthy of her, and that was the best I was ever going to get, so I better work hard to keep her, kind of thing. And that did a number, being told from the time you're 16 until I guess I got divorced, I was told that I was less than, and that was really harmful to my self-esteem. And so while maybe I had realized that a couple of years ago, how that had affected me, I guess I never really cried for my 16-year-old self. Like, I never really
process the emotion of that.
Yeah, it was more like intellectual, where I'm like, oh yeah, okay, so I can see why my mother and her parents telling me that I was unworthy for all those years hurt my self-esteem, but I never really grieved for that, and I think that's what kind of came out. So that just kind of speaks to, I guess, how sometimes plant medicine like cacao can help us to do our shadow work. It helps bring those things out. And that was a powerful purge for me. That just kind of happened very organically.
Okay, so when you had that ceremony, you had that epiphany, and you were able to release that. What kind of change did you notice when you were going back to those kind of thoughts? Like when you were going back to those thoughts and those emotions that you had previously, you thought you kind of went through them, but then you had this ceremony and you released even more. Did you notice a real big difference in terms of looking back at those instances?
Well, being that this just happened very recently, it was only a few weeks ago, I think the integration process sometimes takes a long time. It's not something usually that is very immediate. I would say that immediately I was able to have more compassion for myself, right? Here I am weeping for my 16-year-old self, feeling bad. Oh my God, I can't believe you were treated like that, and how much that hurt you. And so then you can have more compassion for yourself and forgive yourself for the things you may have done in response to that. Now, eventually that led to me having a sex addiction. And so it's almost like I'm a little bit deeper, at a little bit deeper level of forgiveness of myself for the toxic behaviors that I participated in, that I exhibited, the sex addiction, the using women for validation, right? I was trying to build my self-esteem back up. So now I have like a new layer of compassion for myself and forgiveness for those things that I've done that I've been hard on myself for in the past, judging myself for doing it. So I think that's one of the most immediate things, is when you can have, when you have a revelation like that, and then you can be like, oh, okay, so I get why you were doing those things that were toxic, and I can have compassion and I can forgive you for that now. So I think that's probably for me the immediate result of that.
Okay, that's very, very good. I'm glad that you're able to do that. It's awesome, especially something that you were thinking that was pretty much kind of put to rest, but.
Yeah, I thought it was dealt with,
Very
you know,
surprising.
and yeah.
How about you, Vanessa? Was there any sort of similar situation that occurred in your life or recently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing with shadow work, right? A lot of times we think, oh, I just have to go through this process and then I'm done. I just have to do my shadow work and then I'll be good for the rest of my life. And the truth is, shadow work is a daily process. And it's paying attention to the minor things, the minor triggers. And, you know, we're out here in this world and we're all reflections of each other. And we're all triggering each other at varying degrees. For me recently, I had a very interesting trigger because we got sick earlier this month. And at first, I was the only adult in our co-parenting relationship that was still standing. So Danny was sick, Xander's mom was sick, Xander's grandparents were sick, and I was the only one that was still okay. So I ended up taking care of Danny, of Xander, of our dog, and it was like chaos for a while. And then the second week that Danny was sick, I started getting sick. And I had at first just a little bit of a cold and I was coughing. And one of the occasions, I think I coughed and I turned to look at Danny and I was thinking like, oh God, here I go now. And he was like, you're fine. And for us, we're all about manifestation, the power of our thoughts. So it made sense for him to say, you're fine, you're okay, no need to panic or worry. But it sent me spiraling down my own childhood traumas. And I didn't realize it at first. I was getting really irritated because I was like, I'm not fine. I feel sick. I'm tired, I'm congested, and I have a cold. It's not like the end of the world, but I feel sick. And after a few days, I just kept feeling worse and worse, and I was exhausted and kind of pushing through the feelings, and also upset because I felt like I wasn't getting empathy from Danny. And we ended up having a conversation about it, and he was like, I'm so, I'm sorry, I didn't intend to because I said, you're being dismissive of how I feel. And he was like, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be dismissive. I just didn't want you to worry and freak yourself out and make you more sick. And as we kind of spoke through that, talked through that, I started realizing that this was a childhood trauma. When I was little, my parents were both working all the time, and they couldn't afford to keep me home from school if I got sick. So there were times where I had a cold, I felt sick, and my parents would be like, I go to my dad. I remember my dad telling me one time, I have gone to work with a fever. I can't afford to take a day off from work. So you have to go to school. You just have a cold. It's no big deal. And I remember seeing other children that if they didn't feel well, their parents would keep them home and take care of them and pamper them. And I felt I didn't get that from my parents. Now, my parents are both immigrants. They literally could not afford to just stay home one day because they were both working in jobs where they got paid by what they produced on a daily basis. So they couldn't just take a day off and that would just throw them off financially. So I wasn't allowed that option to be sick, to stay home from school because I was sick. And I was telling Danny just yesterday, I think I was telling him that I remember in grammar school that I used to go to the nurse's office almost every day, and I would just say I had a headache or a stomach ache, and at this point the nurse realized, like, this girl says this every day. So every day she would just like say, "Oh, hi Vanessa," as soon as I walked in. "Hi Vanessa, what are you feeling today?" And I would just say, "Oh, my stomach hurts," or "My head hurts," and she'd be like, "Okay, why don't you sit on the bench?" And I would sit on the bench for my whole lunch hour, and then she would be like, "Okay, are you ready to go back to class?" And I'd be like, "Okay," and I would just go back to class. But every day it was a hope that I would be sick enough where she would call my mom and my mom could come pick me up, and that just never happened. So being sick this time and just having him say something like, "You're fine," triggered all of these like moments from my childhood where I wanted to be taken care of and I felt like I wasn't worthy of being taken care of. And as a child, you don't fully understand the picture of how much your parents are struggling financially. My parents did a great job of trying to cover it up as much as possible, trying to make us feel like we had an abundant childhood. And I did have an abundant childhood, but there were certain things that they just couldn't do. So something like keeping me home from school was like, I had to be really sick in order for them to say, "All right, you're going to stay home from school and you get to be pampered." And even then, I was being pampered by a babysitter, not by my parents, because they couldn't afford to stay home. And so all of these things were what was being triggered with his simple, "You're fine." Like, it's just this little thing of "you're fine." And I was so triggered. I was so upset. I was like, "Oh, I'm not allowed to be sick. I have to, take care of everybody. You were sick for a week and in bed, and I was taking care of you, but I'm not worthy of being taken care of." And I even said that to him at point, like, "I don't need you to take care of me. I'll take care of myself. It's fine. I just need you to acknowledge that I'm sick." And Danny was like, "Why wouldn't I take care of you?" But like, that's the shadow, right? The shadow self is hurt and saying, "Oh, you don't think I'm worthy of being taken care of? Don't worry about it. I got it myself. I don't need you anyway." And that's where our work is, right? And when I saw that reaction come out, I was like, wait a minute, this is really dramatic right now, and I'm not sure where it's coming from. And then I, had to take that journey back into my childhood and look at all of those things. And as I was processing it, like, more thoughts would come up, more examples of ways in which I wanted to be cared for. And those are like, that's your root chakra, right? That's your security system. That's your feelings of safety. And that was one of the first things Danny said, where he was like, "I'm so sorry that you didn't feel safe enough to be sick." And I was like, yeah, that's what it was. I didn't feel safe. And, we talked through that. We processed that. And, of course, Danny is also like, "I'm here for you. I'm willing to help you. I want to take care of you." And my work is to allow myself to be taken care of, right? Because then your defense mechanisms, your ego says, "I don't need that. I'm not going to risk getting hurt. I'm not going to risk being told, no, you can't be sick. I'm just going to take care of myself and push through it." So my work has been, throughout this illness, was to take care of myself, allow myself to be taken care of, allow myself to rest. And, that's something I've struggled with for years, where I will push through as exhausted as I am, as crappy as I feel. I will just keep pushing through because that's how I was raised. That's what I was taught, that I don't deserve rest. Or not that I don't deserve it, but it's unnecessary. I don't need to rest. I can just work through anything. And now it's honoring my body and saying, yeah, I deserve to rest. If my body's tired, there's a reason why I'm sick. There's a reason why my body needed to shut down for a couple of days. And if I don't honor that, it's going to appear in some other way. And that's what shadow work is. If you don't face the uncomfortable feelings, it's going to come up in some other way. So your best option is always to take a look at what is coming up, why it's coming up, what are we exploring. Danny having this big purge is like, okay, what's coming up? What part of me is still not healed? Oh, snap, I never grieved for 16-year-old me that was, hurt and felt insecure. Let me honor that. Let me allow 16-year-old Danny to grieve, to get that emotion out, because our bodies are storing all of those emotions. We're storing all of the things that we never processed. I hadn't processed that childhood feeling of, I want to be taken care of. I want to stay home. If I am not feeling well, I don't want to go to school and push through the schoolwork when I'm feeling crappy. I deserve to honor my body. And now I get to do that. And I don't do that just for me in this moment. I'm doing that for grammar school Vanessa that wanted to do that. And the more I do that, the more I heal that part of myself, that next time when I'm not feeling well and Danny says, you're good, you're fine, I won't take that personally. It's not going to be offensive because I've already done the healing work for those childhood experiences.
You know, what's so funny is that while you're talking about this, I'm remembering that, you know, there are times when Vanessa won't slow down, and I kind of take the attitude of, oh, here she is being a martyr again. She doesn't feel well. She needs to rest, but she's going to go do the laundry, do all the dishes. She's going to do everything today like it needs to be done today. And I get that attitude, and I use that word like martyr. Oh, she's going to be a martyr now. And as you were just saying that, I realized, like, my mother and her mother were very similar. Well, my mother's passed, her mother's still here, but they had very similar personality types, which is also very similar to me. So really the three of us are very similar personality types. And I realized that her mother kind of does that, and my mother used to do that. So when she's doing it, when she's like, oh, I need to rest, I'm exhausted, I'm sick, but I have all this stuff I have to do. I have to do the laundry. I have to do this, I have to do that. It's really growing up with my mother doing that that's irritating me. And I think that's something that we don't realize is when we get triggered by something, we assume that person is saying it. When I said, don't worry, you're fine, I meant, baby, it's okay, don't get upset, we'll get through this. That's really what I meant. What she heard was her mother or her dad saying, too bad that you don't feel good. You have to go to school. You have to go do the laundry. You have to go walk the dog. You got to go do whatever it is. Right?
The world doesn't stop for you.
That's what she heard. And then those triggers layer on top of each other. So she gets triggered, then I get triggered because she's being a martyr, right? But that's how we reflect to each other, and all that stuff from our childhood gets stirred up. Now we can either ignore it and it'll turn into a bigger conflict later, or we can deal with it. We can stop and observe it and deal with it and then disarm it, right? Her realizing and me saying, babe, you're safe. You can be sick. You can rest. Don't worry. I'll take the dog out. I'll do whatever has to be done, so you can rest and get better. Now she feels safe. She can like sigh it out. And that's what I did when I was crying for my 16-year-old self. Like, it was only for a few minutes, but it was enough. It was like, oh, okay, I got acknowledged. My 16-year-old self was like, I got acknowledged. Mm-hmm. I was treated like that. I got acknowledged now. Okay, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging me. I feel better now. I feel like that's a weight that's lifted. And I think that sometimes those triggers can be large like that, like me coming out of a cacao ceremony and all of a sudden I just start weeping, right? That's like a large trigger. It's a deep trauma that came out. And sometimes it comes up in a little way, like with Vanessa, me just making a small comment like, don't worry, you'll be okay. So sometimes you really have to pay attention because it's like almost in the back of your mind, or like a small voice in the back of your mind that you have to pay attention to. The other day, I was driving down this road in Brooklyn where there are a lot of really huge houses, and they're beautiful. But I was like driving, and I'm like, these people with these big opulent houses, what do they need all that for? Why do they need 17 rooms? I mean, that's the size, like where there's like 17 room mansions. And I was like, what are you getting so offended for? So what? People have big, beautiful houses. What is that? Why is that offensive to you? And I started to look into it and realize, oh, this is like some like societal programming. Like you should only have what you need. You don't need a mansion. You don't need a nice car. Like making me feel guilty for me wanting those things. Of course I want nice things. There's nothing wrong with wanting nice things. I mean, I'm not saying I would go out if I had the money and buy a 17-room mansion, but I would certainly buy a nice house. One that I would enjoy living. right? And so it's like, why do I need to feel guilty about that? But all that just from that one little like feeling of, oh, why do these people need all this? These big fancy houses, and I got to realize that, oh, you have some that's like poverty mentality. Like it's this false humility of, you really want to have nice things, you want to have a comfortable life, but then you talk yourself out of it because it's wrong for me to have nice things because some people don't have anything, and so therefore I shouldn't have anything nice either. I mean, but we know we don't live that way. Like, we have a beautiful apartment. It's an apartment, but we make it nice. We have, so it's like there's nothing wrong with that, and I was able to identify that that's just societal programming. Right? It's like probably some stuff that gets passed down from the elite because they want us to just all be poor workers while they enjoy all the wealth, right? Because they have that same scarcity mentality that leads to greed.
That there's limited resources.
Yeah, I think I'm going on a tangent now.
But I think that, the point stands, right? That's what shadow work is. Sometimes we think, oh, I need to sit down and have a session for shadow work. And yes, you can do that. You can set intentions and say, I'm going to look at this part of my life, especially if you have something that's been like looming over you for a while. But shadow work happens at every moment. It is just, like the Toltecs call it it's where you're a hunter. You're hunting your ego, like an ego hunter or a shadow hunter, where you start paying attention to all those little thoughts, like Danny having that thought about those houses and saying, wait a minute, where does that thought come from? Do I really feel that way, or is this something that's programmed in me? And for shadow work, I think one of the most important things is to honor the fact that we all have a dark side to us as well. We're dual, there's duality in our existence, in our being, and so we all have light and we all have dark, and sometimes those dark parts of us are gonna come out, but usually the darkness comes from a place of pain. And if we start looking at, well, where is this really coming from, right? Me being like, oh, I don't need your help, I can take care of myself, that was coming from a place of pain, a place of wanting to be loved and cared for. And when I honor that part of myself, I can have compassion. Oh, it wasn't that I didn't want his help or that I think I can do it myself. It's that, 10-year-old me wanted to be taken care of and I wasn't. And so now I'm going to protect myself to make sure that I don't feel that way again. And I can love 10-year-old me, and I can love the defensive me that wanted to get up and say, I don't need any of that. Yes, I know you're brave. I know you can do it all yourself. It's fine. But you don't have to, and that's okay too. And, it's integrating all of those parts of ourselves because, we have darkness, and it's okay to have darkness. And once we acknowledge that, the shadow work isn't as scary anymore. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go look at this ugly part of myself that I should be ashamed of.
Yeah, okay. I love both of your guys' comments and everything. I really do find a lot of value in that, so thank you guys so much for those responses. It really means a lot. One thing that you said, Vanessa, was the last thing you said, which was very important for me in my life right now, is just being scared. It's just the total, just being petrified to the point where I'm just not doing anything, where I'm just kind of frozen in place. And that's kind of how I felt basically for 4 months, just kind of stagnant, maybe a little benefits, but then going back down again and not finding that consistency and the continual positive influences that I could be doing in my life. I know from earlier this year the things that I can do to help boost my self-esteem and help myself work through a lot of stuff. I completely dropped the ball on journaling. I was doing that for over 2 years, and then I had just completely stopped it because I was just petrified of writing down what's been going on and going through that stuff. And then also what you said earlier was when you said that the shadow work never stops. You may feel like earlier this year, that's why it's also hit home for me, because earlier this year I went through so much stuff, a lot of my shadows from the past, and really having a kind of a 20/20 vision of kind of how I got to this point with the addictions and all that stuff, like the trauma from childhood and the parents fighting all the time. But I was getting new trauma on top of that from my ex at the same time. So I was getting new stuff on top of it. So the work I was doing was great, but I needed to keep going not stop and not say, okay, this was extremely difficult and I went through a lot and I feel really good, but I just got a whole new load of trauma that I wasn't, I guess, wanting to unpack, and just kind of being in a little bit of denial about it, and thinking that, like, okay, I did a crap ton and I did so much progress, I'm good. Like you were saying, like, I'm good now. That's it.
Yeah.
But no, it's there's always new things, and it's good to point those things out, and like you were saying, it's on a daily basis, just a constant thing, 24/7. If you have the kind of like the awareness to be able to kind of do that piece by piece throughout the day. But just being petrified, that's definitely been the case for me, and it's just confusion and stuff like that. It's just been very difficult to kind of hone in on stuff and see where it's led to this point, and stuff along those lines. But what are you guys' thoughts on working through trauma and resentment based off of a singular person? Like, that this is the person that's caused the trauma, and what are your thoughts on working through that trauma and stuff with them? Is it better to do it, like, I'm sure it's case by case, but is it better to do it with them, or to do it separately and they do their own thing, or is it good to kind of mix and match that sort of thing? What's for, I guess, in a personal sense, I'm sure you guys can answer it on that sense, but yeah, what's been the for you guys at least, what's been the most efficient way of really making progress? Is it like, because for me, like, I'm still communicating with this person that's hurting me this year, and I've kind of been stagnant on that end, but I haven't been boosting up my self-esteem, and then also I haven't been working on my trauma that's been caused, even on my own individual free time. Like, because I it's my responsibility to do that myself first and foremost, but also, and the person wants to do stuff with me, but it's just been, I'm not sure if it's better off just cutting ties and doing my own thing, or just taking time apart and doing that, or doing things together and then separately. It's kind of been really kind of up in the air, like discombobulated in my brain. Like, I'm just so confused on my direction. That's obviously where all this is really stemming from, is direction, not having direction, feeling alone, things that are going on in the world, not really having community locally and stuff like that. So,
and I think that's really what a lot of the what tends to be the issue for a lot of us is community. Right? We are so individualistic as a society. We all kind of do our own thing. We go to work, and then we set up time to be with others. And in ancient cultures, it's all about community. Your community holds space for you. Your community is there to support you. Your community you have elders that are there to, offer advice, to offer guidance. And we don't have that now, which makes it really difficult to kind of deal with stuff on our own. In our relationship, some of the, we are each responsible for ourselves, and other people, the way I see it is, other people can trigger us. They are not responsible for the trauma that we experience. They can trigger that trauma in ourselves. And that is a very difficult concept to wrap your head around. And it took me years to get to that place of understanding that Danny's not responsible for my happiness. He's not responsible for my unhappiness either. And even my parents or people in my life that I've experienced trauma with rather than from, they are not responsible. Those are things that I've, in my higher self has chosen to go through and to work through in this lifetime. And that's the way I see it. In our relationship, there was a period where we were going through a lot of intense emotions and intense hurt. And, Danny was dealing with his sex addiction, and that was, of course, affecting me and how I felt.
I wasn't dealing with it.
Yeah.
I was just
He was acting out.
I was acting it out, yeah.
And I was being hurt by that. And in my mind, he has to change, right? He's the one that's engaging in behavior that's hurtful to me. So he has to change. I don't have to do anything. It's his behavior that's wrong, right? If we look at the big picture and look at what he's doing and what I'm doing, then he's wrong and I'm right. Me asking him to stop is the right thing. But I couldn't just get him to change, I also needed to look at the parts of me that had attracted that behavior. Why was I attracting a relationship in which I was being disrespected? Why was I attracting a relationship in which my boundaries weren't respected? All of these things I had to look at. And yeah, I realized I didn't have firm boundaries. I wasn't respecting myself at the time. I didn't know what my boundaries really were. I was still kind of all over the place with boundaries. Sometimes I would set them. Other times I would back off. You know, if Danny just pushed a little bit, I would be like, all right, yeah, whatever you want to do. I'm wrong then. You know, and all of those things were adding to the trauma. And so I couldn't say it was just Danny that was in the wrong. In this case, I was choosing to engage in that way. And so I had to take a step back and look at the parts of myself where I wasn't comfortable setting boundaries. I wasn't comfortable communicating my boundaries, communicating the things that I wanted, knowing that I deserved the things that I wanted, right? I kept thinking, I don't deserve that. Who am I to ask him to change his behavior? Who am I to ask for this boundary in our relationship? And so I had to start looking at myself. Why don't I think I'm worthy of these boundaries? Why don't I think that I deserve the things that I want in a relationship? This is my life, right? It's my experience. Why should I settle for something that I'm not happy in? And once I started looking at that stuff on my own, I could come back into the relationship with him and say, hey, these are my boundaries. I love you. I believe you are the love of my life. At the same time, I have these boundaries. And if you can't respect those boundaries, we can go our separate ways. And believe me, I will have no hard feelings. I will love you. I will even miss you. But I'm comfortable with walking away now because I know what I deserve. And I believe that I deserve those things. And me coming into the relationship with that changed everything.
So when she said that, when we had that conversation, I finally believed her. There had been, like she had said, there were many times that she had tried to set boundaries in the past, and if I just pushed a little bit, she would give in. But this time, I knew she was telling the truth. And I don't want to say it forced me to respect her, but it inspired me to respect her. Now, all of a sudden, I was like, oh, okay, that's your boundary. Well, I want to be with you. I want us to work this out. So, okay, I'll respect that boundary. She started doing her work before I did, and she inspired me to do the work. So, to kind of circle back to your question about should you do the work together or should you do it separately, it's both. It's really both. But it starts with you doing your work yourself. So whether or not your ex or your girlfriend is willing to do her work at this moment is irrelevant. You need to start doing your work, and then hopefully the best case scenario, or the scenario we would hope for, is that you would inspire her to do the work, and then you guys can start doing it together. And that's what happened with us. Vanessa did her work first, inspired me. Now it's been years of us doing work together as a couple, so we've been very blessed to do that. I want to go back to thank you, Rena. I want to go back to what Vanessa was saying about her setting her boundaries. We just got a puppy a few months ago, and so we've been watching a lot of Cesar Millan and the Dog Whisperer. And if anybody's familiar with Cesar Millan, he always talks about calm confidence. That you have to get to the place where you have calm confidence, and then your dogs, because if you're showing anxiety, if you're showing fear or even anger, your dogs respond to that energy. Well, it's the same thing in relationships. So Vanessa got to the place finally where she had that calm confidence of saying, I love you. If you can't respect my boundaries, though, I'm going to have to walk away. That's just how it's going to have to be. So when you can get to that calm confidence about anything, in dealing with any trigger, but really most of all, I would say the calm confidence comes from loving yourself. That is the most difficult. I mean, I really think that's the core of all shadow work.
Yeah. Is
just loving yourself. Me being able to love my 16-year-old self. Me being able to love myself that was a full-on sex addict, acting out that sex addiction, cheating, using women, etc., right? Loving that part of myself, that shadow aspect. That's all it is. Loving yourself is loving your shadow. I love the part of me that was a sex addict because I know deep down that sex addict just wanted love. He just wanted to feel loved and worthy. And so, he did it in a stupid way or a backwards way, right? Thinking that the more women he could sleep with, that would build his confidence back up and he would feel valuable. That was a lot. That was a little bit of a purge right there because I felt that emotion coming out.
But that's exactly it. Sometimes I think we think that the shadow work is going to eliminate the dark parts of ourselves. And it's not about eliminating them, it's about integrating them. And my best friend and our spiritual mentor and guide through a lot of our healing work likes to talk about her ego as, if you've watched The Mandalorian, what's his name? Grogu, yeah. Grogu.
The baby
Yoda. And she's like that she sees her ego as Baby Yoda. And, sometimes what happens when we haven't integrated the ego is that the ego runs the show. And so she says she likes to imagine herself riding her little motorcycle and has a sidecar, and she can tell Grogu, it's okay, I've got this, you can come with me in my little sidecar, but I'm gonna ride, I'm gonna drive. And so she's like, I get on my motorcycle and little baby Yoda is next to me, my baby ego is right here, and I bring him everywhere I go, but I'm in the driver's seat. And that's what it is when we do our shadow work. We allow those parts to exist. We accept those parts. And when we accept those dark parts of ourselves, we're more willing to have compassion and understanding and acceptance for the dark parts of all the other people that are around us. When the people that we love do things that are hurtful to us, that feel like they're being mean or they're being aggressive, we can have empathy and compassion for those parts and start to understand what's really underneath all of that. Because I know that when I've hurt other people, it's been because I was hurting, because I had an unmet need that I didn't know how to express. And so now when somebody hurts me, I can say, what's the unmet need that they're going through right now? And that's not to say that I accept them disrespecting me or crossing my boundaries. I can still set firm boundaries, but I can have compassion while I set those firm boundaries. And that's what Danny was talking about, that calm, like, security, right?
Maybe that's a better way to say it, calm compassion.
Yeah, it like I could understand Danny's pain. I knew what he was going through. At the time, he didn't accept that he was a sex addict. I had brought it up a couple of times and he was like, I'm not an addict. And at the time, he wasn't aware of what was really, he wasn't accepting of that part of himself. But I was accepting of that part of him because I knew where that was coming from. I could have compassion for that and say, okay, this is coming from a place of hurt. I'm not going to allow you to hurt me, but I can see where these behaviors came from and I can have compassion for that. And if you want, we can work together to heal that part, but I have my boundaries and I am not allowing you to cross them anymore.
Yeah, excellent points. I gotta remember to write this stuff down, or at least some of the things that you guys are saying, so I remember to circle back to it. When you were talking about, what was it? Like when you're saying like the calm confidence, the calm compassion and stuff. It's like doing the shadow work. It's almost like taking something that you know that was wrong, and instead of obviously having the shame and the guilt, you're obviously able to accept it, and then that kind of transmutes to true wisdom, because then you can not just look back on it and know that it was wrong and stuff, but then you can finally just accept it, and then in a positive way change those actions, not where you're shaming yourself into maybe, or if you slip up or do whatever that's kind of tied to that, maybe, and you continue it on, and then maybe you just make it worse for yourself because you haven't really fully forgiven yourself for the previous things you've done. So I think it's almost like creating wisdom at the same time, because you're able to not have kind of like that clouded viewpoint of it. You can really look back on it with a clearer mind and not as negative, so, more neutral mindset. So I think that's excellent. And then what was some of the other things? Jeez Louise.
Sorry, we get on the like we get started and we just go.
I actually have a question for you, Nick.
Yes.
When you find that, that's great. That's a great question, Lindsay.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get back to that.
Yeah. I'll let you say your thing.
Don't want to lose my train of thought. When you find that you're getting too much into your gaming or cannabis, using too much cannabis or playing too much gaming, how do you talk to yourself?
That's a great question. Let's see. I'm just gonna expand this out a little bit. So like in the moment, like, because I haven't been doing that much activity. Luckily my job, I'm doing a lot of lifting and stuff, so I am getting a lot of exercise going up and down stairs, so that's great. But then when I'm here, I'm kind of stagnant, mostly just sitting, so I feel really tight in my body and in my shoulders and stuff like that. It's not a good way to be all the time. So like I noticed that as I'm doing it, as I'm playing and stuff, and I'm realizing this isn't helping me. I know I'm avoiding stuff, but I guess just the anxiety and the dread just feels like it's insurmountable. It's something that it seems like it's almost impossible for me to kind of break out of that. So I've just been using this as a crutch since I was a kid, to use gaming as like an escape, of course. So it's and so it still has those roots back to my childhood also, because it's got the nostalgia, more of the comfort, all that stuff that plays a role. So I know that, but in the moment, like, I guess because I'm getting dopamine, I'm getting a lot of input, and I know that, like, hey, I should just go downstairs, start some dishes, I should start doing that stuff, because I know I'm going to feel better. I've seen that recently, how I get stuff done and I feel better. And I actually got an application, it's called Habitica. It's almost like you put, like, the chores you got to do, and then you got, like, a little character, and if you do them, you click on it, and you get some XP, whatever. I know that they're trying to gamify our lives, and I know that's not something that I should need. It's not something I should need in order to get some stuff done.
Everything's a tool. There's nothing wrong with it.
But yeah, in the moment, like I do recognize it, but then I just feel conflicted. I feel like, well, I just feel so daunting because I just know there's so much on my plate that I should be doing to get done, and I should chisel away at it a little bit at a time. But then I just don't. Like, it's just like these other thoughts kind of override that, to where it's like,
I guess
just sit in place, just pass the time. You don't want to think about what's going on and all your problems. So it's almost like the trauma just seems like it's too much for me to handle.
Do you get angry at yourself for indulging too much? Do you judge yourself? I guess that's where I was really going with it. I think that for you, in this moment, with what you've shared with us, that you're struggling with using cannabis too much and playing video games too much, you want to look at yourself and say, I understand the fear that you have of digging into this pain. It's not easy. It's hard. It hurts. And so I can empathize with myself. Talk to yourself. Even doing mirror work, looking into the mirror. I've only done this a few times, honestly, but the few times I've done it, it's been pretty powerful. It also helps if you're on mushrooms. You get deeper into your own psyche. Looking at yourself in the eyes in the mirror and saying, hey, I understand why you're so afraid to dig into this pain. It hurts, but I love you. And I don't judge you for wanting to escape into video games. It's a lot more fun to play video games than to face your pain, or to numb out with cannabis. It's a more enjoyable sensation than the anxiety of having to deal with the pain. So don't judge yourself for it. Be patient with yourself. And when you find yourself doing it too much, just gently nudge yourself. Say, come on, buddy, let's do something productive. Let's
get one task.
let's journal for 5 or 10 minutes. Let's just do that. And maybe you end up flowing and journaling for an hour. Or maybe it's hard to get through the 5 minutes. And then tomorrow, let's try 6 minutes. And then, these are just gentle ways that you can kind of push yourself back to the path. the worst thing to do. It's more harmful to judge yourself for playing too much video games than it is to play too much video games. You feel me?
Yeah.
It's much more harmful to judge yourself than it is to just indulge in cannabis or video games.
Yeah.
So that's what I would like to see you do, is just love yourself anyway and be patient with yourself. And one of the things that Mother Ayahuasca taught me, like Cara saying her ego is like baby Grogu, basically Mother Ayahuasca taught me the same thing, to talk to myself the way I would talk to my 10-year-old son, or to myself as a 5-year-old or a 10, whatever it is, right? Talk to yourself as a child. You're not going to scream at a child, "What are you, a fucking idiot?" I don't know if I'm supposed to curse on the channel, but you're an idiot playing games all the time, you lazy, that kind of talk is very harmful.
Yeah.
So.
I know, yeah, because I guess I'm going to put her on blast. Lindsay, that's the person that I've been seeing, and so, like, I've screwed her over. Like, I told you about this, Danny. Like, I cheated on her last year.
Lindsay, in the comments you made?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi.
I wanted to comment and put some questions up, because this is regarding us. Because she still has trauma from me that she hasn't gone through recently. Like, her question, she's talking about God and stuff. She's kind of found that again. Found like a small group, like a church that she can go to now. She's got some female friends that she's got. And I just get so absolutely triggered from that, just knowing that I'm kind of still here in this rut, and I feel horrible because of things that she's done to me recently, and then I just see her kind of like forgiving herself, and she's kind of moving on and building her self-esteem this way. She hasn't worked on the trauma between me and her, so she still has trauma that way, but she's building up her self-esteem, and I get so jealous, and I get so much anxiety and anger. I still have anger and resentment from her just 4 months ago, and it's almost like I'm still kind of stuck in that zone of like that first kind of stage, and not really being able to fully accept it. And that's also where like all these kind of diversions come in for myself, and that's why I'm still in a state of confusion, because I'm not kind of working through those things and picking them apart and seeing, are these some of these reasons I'm coming up with for staying, are some of these even relevant to the decision, or is it just because I'm just scared of, like, because we have like a freedom cell group that we have, and if I split, then I'm not going to be a part of it, because I don't want to be involved in that, but I just know that I'm not going to have a community, and I'm going to be more alone. So does that have any relevance to me and her? No, in reality it doesn't. It shouldn't have any part to play. It should be how my feelings are towards her. Do I love her, or do I still care about her still? Even though a lot of the feelings have diminished recently, I still am here, but I'm not sure if it's just loneliness, or it's because I'm not masturbating anymore, and I don't want to masturbate anymore. So she's open to doing stuff, and is that how selfish is that? Is that really a genuine reason why I'm sticking around, or is that just something that's in my head that I'm thinking about? Like, it's just been so many conflicting things that can kind of snowball in one small frame of time, to where I just kind of throw my hands up in the air and say, I'm just not sure. Like, I'm not writing it down to kind of try to divide it up and really make sense of it. So it's just been scatterbrained. So you can, that's why for my car is a mess, and I'm not organized in that sense. My desk is getting disorganized again. Like, I'm losing that again.
We can feel the energy of it just from how you're speaking. Yeah, we can definitely sense the confusion.
And those are all defense mechanisms, right? When you start having, when you don't want to get hurt, then your ego starts coming up with all of these ways to protect you. And it sounds like these are logical things. Yeah, I should look at that and this and that. But it's all trying to avoid the actual feeling. And we live in a society where it's like, pick yourself back up again, and love and light, go out there with a happy face, and don't indulge those negative feelings. And shadow work requires that you indulge those negative feelings, because out of the darkness is where life emerges. And so we have to go into that darkness. We have to go sit with those uncomfortable feelings and realize what's underneath all of it, right? I'm hurt. Why am I hurt? Am I hurt because I am, because I love this person? If I didn't love this person, it wouldn't have hurt this much, right? If I didn't, is it an insecurity? Did it trigger a childhood need for validation? Did it trigger this? It's going through that darkness to figure out what is the 10-year-old Nicholas that's in there really feeling? What unprocessed emotion is in there that is being triggered for you to look at right now, so you could bring that 10-year-old Nicholas into the light now and bring him into life with you now? Because what happens is, since childhood, we start experiencing these things and we suppress it. And we suppress those parts of ourselves. We suppress the part of us that wants validation. We suppress the part of us that wants love. We suppress the part of us that wants to feel cared for, right? Like in my case, I suppress that part. So sometimes when Danny's trying to care for me, I push him away because I've been suppressing that from childhood. When I wanted that and I couldn't have it, my ego was like, okay, let's suppress that need for now because we're not going to get it, and that way you won't get hurt. But now as an adult, I push it away. And so when we start looking at all of this darkness, we start looking like, oh, wait, there's that part of me that likes this. There's that part of me that wants this. Where has that Nicholas been? Oh, yeah, I suppressed him when I had this trauma, and now that's being triggered, and my ego's trying to protect me from that. And it is scary work. It feels scary because we're so used to wanting to be in the state of joy, in the state of happiness, or at the very least in a state of not feeling anything, and we're conditioned to numb ourselves out. And so that's why, then you want to play the video games, or you want to smoke, or, whatever coping mechanism will kind of numb you out so that you're not feeling these uncomfortable feelings. We can tell you that we've been in the uncomfortable. We've allowed ourselves to go deep into the uncomfortable. And what happens is, I think what you were describing earlier is alchemy, right? You take these uncomfortable experiences, these ugly things about yourself, and you transmute them into something, into wisdom, into a greater lesson, into a greater understanding. I mean, I've gone through some of the darkest periods of my life, and I can honestly say that I am so grateful for those dark, horrible, ugly things that I have gone through. I'm grateful that I've gone through those things, and I can look at them now and I call them dark and ugly and uncomfortable and horrible because that's the way we judge them as a society. But to me, they are now some of the most beautiful experiences because those are the things that got me to where I am right now. Without those experiences, I wouldn't be in this particular moment having this particular experience. And it takes a lot of work, and it doesn't always feel that way. There are definitely times where I can slip back into old patterns, and it's having compassion for yourself and saying, yeah, I'm a human being. I'm going to have this experience. And that's what we're here for. We're here to have all of the experiences, all of the colors of the rainbow, right? I always laugh because a few years ago, one of my nieces for Christmas asked for a lump of coal. And I always thought it was just weird. I was like, this child is so strange. She was like, I want to be on the naughty list and I want to get a lump of coal for Christmas. And I always thought it was crazy. Like, this child is insane. Why would she want that? And I got her a lump of coal and a letter from Santa telling her that she was on the naughty list, and she was super excited. It was like the happiest I have ever seen her. And I was talking to my friend about it, and she was like, that's amazing. She is here to have all of the experiences. She's like, yeah, I want it all. I want to be on the naughty list. I want to get a lump of coal for Christmas. And that we forget that that's what we're here for. She was at the time, I think she was like 7, and she had that curiosity about life, right? I am here to experience it all. Oh, snap. I'm going to get a lump of coal. Yeah, that's an experience. Let's do that, right? And now when I look at the experiences we've had and some of the stuff that I, at the time, felt traumatic and painful and horrible, I'm like, oh my God, we lived that. Like, we went through some of the craziest stuff. Like, yeah, we were both abusive towards each other. We said horrible things. We were hurtful. We were disrespectful. We had that experience. And now we're in this other place. We've alchemized all of that into this place where we are now, where it's full of joy. And yeah, we are still processing some of the stuff from back then. Those old triggers still come up and we're working on it, but we wouldn't be here without all of the trauma that we went through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job, babe.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to something that you guys said earlier in the interview when you were talking about the boundaries that you were setting up and basically the ultimatum that you gave to Danny. And I've noticed that in myself where it's unfortunate, but it gets to the point where my back has to be up against the wall almost for me to really get the motivation and the drive and the willpower to do it, because then I know, okay, well, this is it. It's
To do what? Set a boundary?
To set a boundary or to do something that I know I need to do. It's almost like with my addictions earlier this year or last year. Like I had like the porn and the sex and all that stuff. I was cheating on Lindsay, and I was doing all these horrible things, and I was just in a dark place, and I had shame and regret because of that stuff, and I felt unworthy. So then I did it more just to push her away even further, and it was horrible. It was absolutely terrible. And then it wasn't until January 7th when she told me that she was pursuing somebody else. That's when I was like, okay, well, now I gotta boot up my ass. Now I want to get this stuff done because I'm realizing how much I care about this person. I'm not just kind of trying to suppress it and having all these traumas and addictions kind of cloud my ability to get that done. So it's almost like I kind of had like my pedal to the metal, and I was like now I'm doing this stuff, and it really shouldn't be that way. Like in school, like I would have a project, I would wait until the last second. Oh, now I'm going to get it done, and there we go. I'm finished with it. But I just have all this built up anxiety because I'm dreading doing it and just procrastinating. So like I can relate to that, Danny, because like it wasn't until I kind of had that ultimatum of sorts of like you got to get shit done or that's it. It wasn't until that's when I started doing that again. And so like the past 4 months as an example, I know that she's been the wrong party this time, and so like I know that I feel like I have more leeway in terms of what I can do and how long it's going to take me to get over this stuff. And so I've been kicking the can down the road, procrastinating, not going through my stuff and working on myself like you guys have been talking about. So is it going to get to the point where she's like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You're not doing anything. You're just being negative and making me feel like shit. And I'm trying to do better, and you're not. It's not. Are these
things that she says to you, or is this you assuming she might say something like this?
Assuming, like maybe down the road, because you go on.
So you're making up stories.
So yeah. Basically. Yeah.
Don't make up stories.
I know.
The stories you make up are always going to be worse than the reality.
Yep. I know. I got to the point where it's almost like I'm so convinced, like you can't talk me out of this thing that I'm thinking right now. Because I just have so much trauma. It's like the self-defense mechanism.
Yeah.
I'm so hurt at this moment that I'm coming up with so many, like, far end of the spectrum kind of
like that's gonna happen. So don't even do anything now because that's gonna happen down the line, right?
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna call you to the carpet right now and ask you, when you cheated on Lindsay, did it have anything to do with the way you felt about her? Does your sex addiction have anything to do with your feelings about Lindsay?
So last year when I was doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, because I know I have a history of that with other relationships. Like my first relationship, I cheated.
Don't get into story. I want you to focus on your feelings. Did you cheat on Lindsay because you don't love her? Or let me put it this way. Did you stop loving her when you cheated on someone else? When you cheated on her, when you were with somebody else, did it change your feelings for Lindsay?
It made me feel less worthy, because I knew that I was causing damage from it.
But how did you feel about Lindsay? Even in the midst of that,
I knew I genuinely cared about her as a person. I felt like I was convinced that I could not understand what love was anymore ever since my first relationship, because that's when I thought I knew what love was then. And like since then I had relationships that were failing, and I felt like I couldn't understand what love was anymore. Like, because I had people that I was genuinely interested in, very nice people, no reason why we shouldn't have worked out, but then like it was just I feel like it was a lot of my addictions and the mindset, and just obviously those shadows and those addictions talking to me and kind of overpowering me. Like the feelings I genuinely had for her, I was covering it up by saying, okay, well, what if someone better comes along? Or like,
so you were self-sabotaging.
Self-sabotaging, absolutely.
So then it has nothing to do with how you feel about Lindsay. It was internal. that those behaviors came from your internal state. You didn't cheat on Lindsay because you didn't really love her or you didn't think she was worthy of you being loyal to her. You cheated because you had an insecurity inside and you were trying to soothe that.
And so that's the case with anytime anybody hurts us, right? Anytime anybody does anything to hurt us, it's more about what's going on internally with them, the same way it's about what's going on internally with us when we engage in a behavior that's hurtful to somebody else.
Yeah.
Right.
And
so Lindsay, hold on a second. Let me just finish up this thought, and then I do want you to express yourself. Can you see, if you apply that and realize, oh, when I hurt Lindsay, it wasn't because I didn't love her. So can you see that might be the case here where she hurt you?
Yep, exactly. And that's the thing, like, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say, like, I, of all people, should know how this sort of thing goes. She's been a cheater. I've been a cheater. She's been a chronic cheater. I've been a chronic cheater. And then I cheated on her last year, and she was just supposed to just sit there and just understand. Well, I'm not going to cheat on him, so it's like I got to just take that humility and that huge kick in the face and just try to work through that trauma, which is how I have to be right now. Is I still want to be with her, part of me, or because I'm confused, so I'm not sure. But it's like I should know, I should understand. I caused all this trauma for her. She already had trauma already before that, and if someone hasn't worked through their internal traumas, it shoots sideways in ways and like something that they're comfortable with doing. Like that was something that she's done before too, and she wasn't okay. And she still had so much resentment and trauma towards me that it kind of, she validated it, or she not validated, but like justified what she was doing because she had so much hurt, which is how I've been feeling these past couple months. I have so much anger and resentment, like I kind of justify some of the things, the way I act towards her, the way I respond towards her. I'm like, yeah, that's what she like. Like the ego. So like, I of all people should understand why she did what she did, but it's because I can look at myself in the same situations and understand that and kind of give myself more of an understanding. But then with her, it's like I don't do that for the most part.
I think that because deep down you haven't really made your peace with your own behaviors, and that's really what it is, right?
You haven't forgiven her because you haven't forgiven yourself.
Everybody is a reflection of us. Everybody we encounter, everybody who triggers us, they're reflecting those unhealed parts of ourselves back to us. And when we're unable to forgive ourselves, we have a hard time forgiving other people. When we have not let go of the judgment towards ourselves, we judge other people as well. So it all is, again, it always comes back to us. And so I would ask you to look at yourself and look at why you feel you deserve the hurt. I think what I'm sensing from the way you are expressing yourself, it's almost like you deserve to be hurt. And so you're allowing yourself to be hurt because deep down you deserve to be hurt because of all the things that you've done. And maybe it's wallowing in that hurt because you think you deserve it. And at the same time, it's like we think we deserve it, but we don't want to feel it. So it has a whole bunch of moving parts to it.
It's a clusterfuck.
Yes. And another thing I would suggest, and, like this is, for me, one of the things that has shifted how my day goes. I think morning practices are super essential, especially if you want to get started on facing your shadow work, right? How you start your day really does determine what you do during the day. So Danny and I try to have a practice every morning. We don't always do it, but we do. We have our cacao in the morning. Instead of coffee, we drink cacao. But you can have tea, you can have coffee, whatever it is that you drink in the morning. And we have it as a sort of ceremony, right? For us, we pull tarot cards or oracle cards. Sometimes we journal. Sometimes we just talk about things. But I really am a firm believer in starting your day off, giving yourself the time to feel. And so if the first thing you do when you wake up is even if it's just a glass of water, take your glass of water, sit down, drink it, and allow yourself to check in with your body, check in with your emotions. What am I feeling right now? Where's the tension in my body? Where is that tension? I mean, you were talking about feeling it in your body, right? Where do you feel it? Do you feel it is it in your chest? Like, is it really your heart feeling something? Is it your stomach? Is it your back? Like, where are you feeling discomfort? And allow yourself to feel it. Give it a voice, right? Simply ask yourself, what does 10-year-old Nicholas feel right now? 10-year-old me, what do you need? And it can be anything. It could just like, I need validation. Okay, I'm gonna validate you, and start doing it 15 minutes a day.
You are beautiful, you are powerful, you are free. Tell yourself that every morning.
Man.
15 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, you are worthy of that. And once you start recognizing that you are worthy of that time for yourself, then that shifts how you go about your day, right? If you were willing to give yourself the 10-15 minutes in the beginning of the day to be with yourself, then throughout the day, it'll be easier to make choices that honor you. Right? Mm-hmm. Playing the video games, doing all that stuff, and that may be honoring you as well, right? Maybe right now you just need some time to check out, and that's okay. And that's where we pull back the judgment, right? You're feeling like, I'm not facing any of this stuff, I just want to check out. Okay, it's okay to check out sometimes. It's okay to have that. We're going into winter right now. It's time to go inward. It's time to slow the body down, to slow the mind down a little bit, and kind of explore. It is shadow work time, right? It's getting darker earlier. The more we go in, we flow with the cycles of nature. And because as a society, we don't honor those cycles of nature, we go through periods of depression. People get the winter blues. We get the winter blues because we're trying to do the same thing, trying to have the same amount of energy in the summer as we do in the winter, and we're not meant to do that. In the winter time, we're meant to go inward, we're meant to slow down, we're meant to honor our bodies and take care of ourselves, to hibernate, to start planning for the spring. And so when we honor those cycles, it's easier for us to check in with ourselves, to check in with the body, to check in with the mind, with the spirit. Kind of going into what Lindsay was asking about, if we think God can play a big role in healing and shadow work. Absolutely. Whether you see it as God, as spirit, as the universe, as quantum energy, it all goes back to the same thing. Whatever faith you have, whatever spirituality practice you have, it is all coming back to the self. Right? Whether you're working with God, what does God always ask you to do is always change yourself, right? The teachings of Jesus are always about how you respond to the world and not how you're going to get the world to do the things that you want them to do.
I would like to even go a little deeper into that and say that our belief system is, and this is very relevant to the Christian worldview, is that we're part of God. The Christian worldview is that we're made in God's image. But even more than that, a piece of God was placed inside of us. The Bible says in Isaiah, I don't remember the verse, but God has set eternity in the hearts of men, but they don't understand it. And that's, to me, that, and in context with other scriptures, we have our soul is a piece of God. And we're coming to earth to have the human experience, to do what Jesus did, right? Jesus is our model if you're a Christian and you believe that way. And for me, I don't consider myself a Christian, but I am absolutely a follower of Jesus. I love Jesus. I think that his message is really all you need is the Beatitudes. That's kind of my perspective on it, because I think there's a lot of garbage that was inserted into the Bible. Anyway, without going on a rant about that, I believe that we are God. We are a part of God here in our bodies, and yes, God can absolutely cure tinnitus. Use your consciousness, and you can heal yourself. Just like Jesus said, I didn't heal you, your faith healed you. I forget which one he said that to. I think it was the blind guy. But now I lost my train of thought. We're God having a human experience. And so the process of shadow work is removing everything that is not part of God. Everything that's been accumulated here on earth, and getting back to our soul, or our higher self, some people call it. In the New Age movement, they usually call it like your higher self. It's taking all of the traumas, all of the self-defense mechanisms, all the ego, the things the Bible would call of the flesh, right? Taking that and healing it so that your soul can shine through. Your true self can shine through, which is God. Your true self is God. And God is love, right? So your true self is love. So anything that isn't love is a smudge, we'll call it, on the mirror. That's like a metaphor that one of my teachers uses, that there's a smudge. Specifically, she talks about in a relationship, there's like a piece of glass, and when you hurt each other, it smudges the glass, right? It's the same thing in your relationship with your higher self. There are smudges on the glass. And every time you heal, every time you do shadow work and you heal apart, you're wiping away a smudge on the glass so that your higher self, God, love, can flow more purely through you.
Yeah.
So I hope that answers Lindsay's question. Yeah. I think God is absolutely crucial to doing your shadow work.
Yeah.
But it doesn't even matter if you call it God. You could call it the universe. You could call it quantum. If you're like a science guy and you don't believe in God and you want to look at it through the lens of science, then you can look at it as quantum energy. So, it doesn't really matter the language you use.
Yeah, just to go, I just want to share my screen really quick. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Share it. Window. Right here. All right, so I'm not sure if you guys can see that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so yeah, I just saw this post just a few days ago, and I was thinking to myself, wow, well, I've been needing to do this for a very long time, and or for a few months now. So how to do shadow work. So for people that are kind of, I guess, not sure about the whole concept, it's some things you can do: journaling your thoughts and your feelings, observing your reactions to different issues and situations, like Vanessa was talking about, really kind of dissecting it. What's causing me to react this way? Learn to respond, not react. Meditate on the aspects of your shadow to get to know it better. Practice being present and conscious. Practice emotions inquiry. Why do I feel like this, and why does that trigger me?
Mm-hmm.
Shadow work is when you explore the depths of your soul in order to heal and grow. It's an introspective practice anyone can do. It's based on the theory we all have a shadow side we must be conscious of. Our shadow consists of those parts of ourselves we hide and repress by pushing them down into our subconscious. That's what I've been doing. By embracing and bringing these things to the surface, we can understand ourselves better, live more authentically, and heal our wounds. Aspects of our shadow include the aggression, fear of our toxic traits and flaws, shame, and selfishness. It's not easy, but shadow work is a vital part of our spiritual journey. Many of us already do this without knowing what it is called. And then, so how to recognize your shadow self? Let's list off all the ones that I have. Every single one of them. So weak and no boundaries, self-sabotage, lack of confidence, afraid to speak up for yourself, saying yes when you want to say no, jealousy, anxiety, being passive-aggressive. Ooh, look at that one. Comparing yourself to others, always putting yourself last, not doing what you know is good for you, and addictions. And then, yeah, there's some journal prompts. People can, I'm going to have these, hopefully in the description or something, so people can look at these for themselves, but I'm not going to go into all of them. But yeah, some journal prompts, some questions that you can really write down and then really contemplate. These are things that I have to do. So,
Nicholas, I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something. I love you. And what I hear you constantly talking about is trauma. And I understand that you're in this place that you feel like you want to start moving forward and doing your shadow work. You are doing your shadow work already. Having this conversation is shadow work, right? Yeah, maybe you have all those things on that list. Maybe you've done a lot of them. I certainly have.
I think
but that's not who you are. Okay? You are love in a human body. That's who the real you is. And I want to see you focus more on what your true self is, rather than all these things that you've collected, all the stories that you've collected about all these traumas that you have. Because I see you stuck in a pattern of you're like reinforcing, I'm traumatized, I'm traumatized, I'm traumatized, I'm traumatized. What I want to start hearing you say is, I'm God. I'm God in a human body. I have a soul. I'm love. Love can flow through me. Because despite all those things, passive aggression and addiction and all that stuff, I know that you're capable of love. I've heard you express love for Lindsay. I don't doubt that you love Lindsay. I know you're saying you're confused, and it's because you're in this turmoil of your emotions. I've heard you express love for Lindsay. I've heard you express that you want to be a better person that she deserves. I've heard you express that, right? But even Lindsay aside, just for you, I don't want you to be so focused on what you're not, all your flaws, right? Focus on the fact that you are love in a human body, and how can I better let that love flow through? That's all. Yeah. It's that simple.
And I think that sometimes we forget that those shadow aspects, that's not, sometimes we look at it as an other, right? Oh, that's the dark, ugly part of me. But that darkness is also part of God having the human experience. And if we can honor that, if we can embrace that part of ourselves, it no longer has this kind of hold on us where we are victims to the shadow parts of ourselves, right? It's a part of me. It's me wanting to experience being on the naughty list and having a lump of coal for Christmas, right? It's that part of us that wants to have all of the experiences, even the shitty, ugly, dark experiences. Yeah, we're having that because what we're doing when we heal that, when we work through it, when we look at it, when we allow it to come through, and when we transform it into love, we are alchemizing. We are alchemists. That's what we're here for, to pick up those experiences, those lower energies, and transform them back into love, cleaning the mirror, cleaning the glass, and we're doing that. Thank you, Nicholas, for being vulnerable. Thank you for picking up trauma. Thank you for experiencing trauma, and for saying I'm here to transmute it. I want to do the work to heal that. I want to do the work to transform this into something beautiful. And you're doing it publicly. How many people are willing to say, yeah, I fucked up. I'm fucking up right now and I don't know how to fix it? That's part of the alchemy, the vulnerability, the saying, hey, I'm a fucked up human being and I want to figure out how to deal with this. The truth is, we are all on the same path. We're all here picking up these lower energies, these dense energies, these fears, these anxieties, these needs for validation, and we're all struggling through cleaning that mirror, cleaning that glass, and we can do it together. And it is especially helpful when we're vulnerable with each other, when we can say, yeah, I'm having a really hard time right now. You're not alone. Every single human being on the planet is experiencing their shadow, is struggling, fighting with their shadow, trying to suppress it at times, suppressing it, being successful at suppressing it, and having it come out in other ways as well. We all go through it, and yes, we have moments where we're able to see it and say, oh snap, that's my shadow, that's my ego not wanting to feel this. And then there are other times where we're like, yeah, I don't want to look at that. There are plenty of times where there are feelings I have where I'm like, yeah, I don't want to look at that right now, and I'll just shove it down. But and then there are other times where I do have the energy and I'm like, okay, let me take a look at some of this stuff because I see that now it's been building and I need to start facing it. We're here for you. We are part of your community. I hope that you know that, and that we're open to chatting with you at any time. And we need more of these conversations. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to come on and say, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm feeling. I don't know where to start. You're holding yourself accountable. And that's like a huge, huge step.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I want to thank both of you both for the responses that you guys just gave. Really means a lot. Really hit home, and it's very much appreciated. And so thank you for that. When you guys were talking about God, and Danny, when you were mentioning like mirror work, that's both of those things were definitely something that I was embracing with open arms earlier this year. Was looking at myself in the mirror and giving myself positive affirmations, and actually finally for the first time being able to believe myself and not just think that it's like uncomfortable and I'm just lying to myself, because I was actually doing changes. I was actually making progress, so I was really proud of myself. So that was definitely something that was helping me out. Praying and really genuinely being thankful for the things I had on a daily basis was crucial. It was absolutely crucial. Coming into the house from being outside in the cold and just saying, wow, thank you for this house. And like I'm locking up and just saying, thank you so much for this. Thanks for the privacy of my room and the privacy of the shower, being able to like reset and clean up. And a lot of people don't even have that. So it's both of those things really helped me out. And just, just knowing that like how karma exists. And if you keep doing wrongdoings, you're going to have crap come right back around. So like I was definitely making positive changes, and doors were opening up for me, and just my perspective was changing, which was excellent. And just like when you're talking about being vulnerable on my channel and just out in the open, that's partially probably why I just put my name as my channel, because it's not just about some of the content I create and just doing interviews and stuff, but this is me. Like I'm not trying to sugarcoat things about myself or put my like, oh yeah, look, I'm doing this interview, so look at how cool I am compared to you guys that aren't doing anything. No, I haven't made content in 7 months. I've been a complete wreck for the past 4 months. I've had, honestly, suicidal thoughts recently, like in the past 4 months. I haven't been in a good place at all. And a lot of that is coming from the ego, and I've just been kicked down so much that I've kind of just been like whimpering and just like giving up at times. And it's been really dark, and it's been incredible how much like I'm just like suppressing and not really going through. And so yeah, I guess to kind of transfer from what I was just saying to maybe some resources that people can use, whether it's books or maybe other content creators that you guys know of or have utilized, or just a specific video, or just anything that you guys can really think of for people that are, because especially now, ever since COVID, like just addictions are going up, suicides are going up. So I'm in that category now, where it's not just because COVID, but just other things in tandem with that. But so that, like you were saying, this is very important stuff that people don't really talk about, which is unfortunate. So yeah, just any sort of resources that you guys can think of, any books or whatever.
Well, we have a podcast called Sovereign Lovestream. If you want to check that out at sovereignlove.nyc. One of our favorite books, and maybe a book that really helped give us a lot of guidance to get on the path, was Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix. And ironically, I was given that book many, many years ago when I was having some issues with my first wife. And my friend sent it to me, and I just put it in a drawer, and I never even read it. And then when we started having issues, then I pulled it out, and we finally got into it like 10 years after.
The funny thing is that he gave it to me like, you should read this book, and I was super offended because I was like, I'm not the problem in this relationship. And then I was like, I'm not reading this book. And then we went to couples counseling, and the therapist, the first thing he said, he had the book on the table and was like, you each need to get a copy of this book. I was like, no way. This guy's gonna have us read this book. But it really changed the way we looked at our relationship. We were able to see why we had attracted each other. Danny was talking earlier about how he's very much like his mom and my mom. And that's it, right? There's the theories that we choose partners that remind us of our parents is very true. It is something that we do. We're trying to heal these childhood traumas, so we attract partners that will trigger those things, and hopefully...
We still have issues, Enzo.
Yes. We still have issues. Everybody does. And so that book really like changed our perspective, where we were able to see the ways in which we were triggering each other and why we had to trigger those things. Like for me to see even recently Danny saying, "Oh, you're okay," and how that triggered a childhood trauma, right? And without him meaning to do that. And if I wasn't aware of the fact that he is meant to trigger me, I would have gotten upset at that and just shut it down and been like, forget it, I'm not even gonna talk about it. Yeah. But we're in a place where we're able to identify those triggers now and take a look at them and say, okay, where is this coming from? What is the real issue here? And it takes honesty and vulnerability with yourself. And I think that's the biggest step, which is why I am so excited to see how vulnerable you are, Nicholas, because that's really the key thing to healing, is being vulnerable, being honest with yourself and saying, what am I really feeling here? What am I, what is the true experience? What is the deep down core memory that's being triggered right now? And how can I look at that? So Getting the Love You Want has a lot of great exercises as well, to work with your partner, even like role playing and
but also I want to throw in that it's, even if you're not in a relationship, it's a great book because it teaches you a new way to think about relationships. So when you're gonna it probably helps you, it'll help you make a better decision in the next relationship you decide to get into. So it's really good. It's really good whether you're in a relationship or not.
All right, do you guys have any other books that you guys can think of off the top of your heads?
I recently read Existential Kink.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
And that is a great book for shadow work. Mm-hmm. So that talks a lot about kind of, integrating your shadow and recognizing that sometimes you do enjoy certain uncomfortable situations. We wallow in our pain a lot. We enjoy that. And one of the things that made me laugh was that she was talking about at the time of publication, the number one shows on TV were Game of Thrones and The Walking Dead. And if you think about it, those shows are all about like death and destruction and war and fighting for survival, and as humans we want to experience that. So we do attract some of those negative experiences because, like I said, we are wanting to have all of the experiences. If you're God and you have access to unlimited resources, to unlimited potential, to all of the positive things you could possibly think of, it would make sense that you might want to have an experience where you don't have that control, where you feel like you don't have that control. And so you're going to go in and have all these challenges. Like I have always made the analogy, we play Fortnite. And so in Fortnite, you can get in a squad and you pick a place on the map where you're going to land, and you have all these challenges. And I'm like, oh my God, Fortnite, like life is like Fortnite, right? You get to pick who the people are in your tribe, in your family, in your experience. You get to decide which challenges you're going to face, and you pick a place on the map where you're going to land with your squad, and you deal with all of those challenges together. And that's kind of how I like to view our experience. We're a squad, we're a team, we're a duo over here, working through all of the challenges that we signed up for in this experience. And yeah, some of it's hard, some of it feels like we're gonna get killed at any moment, but at the same time it's enjoyable, right? It's life. That's what we're here to experience.
Right. If we just wanted to stay in perfect love, we wouldn't have come to Earth. We would have just stayed in heaven, in the bosom, in the bosom of God.
Yeah. Yes, I wanted to share this from Lindsay.
Yes.
She's been doing a lot of, obviously, getting back into her spiritual side and praying and being thankful. And she's noticed in herself that when she's done a lot of negative things consistently, it's because she's kind of lost her way in that sense and not kind of having that foundation.
Next time we should have Lindsay on to talk about.
I know. We talked about this last year.
Yeah.
We were talking about doing like a tag team type of thing. And yeah, I'm definitely open to that for sure. Considering we're still doing whatever it is we're doing, me trying to work through stuff, but And yeah, to kind of go back to me and her, I guess it's just because I've always been the bad guy. I've always been the one that's done the cheating. I've never had it. I've always been the cheater. I've never
You've
been the
always
one
been the
that's.
hurt guy.
I haven't been the one that's had.
You're not the
has
bad
received
guy.
it. Yeah. So
You're
this
the
is
hurt
first
guy.
time I've been cheated on. So it's where it's almost. It's like I'm finally understanding what it feels like to be that person, the person that I
Well,
continually hurt all the time.
can you appreciate the fact that she has now made it real for you that you could really experience what she experienced?
Yeah.
Or what
That's
what other women have experienced. Yeah.
That's partially what. Yeah, that's basically what I was going to get to. Was like, is that why I'm getting so absolutely triggered from it? Is that part of the reason? Is because like I'm really because I've already had shame and guilt from doing that to those people, but I didn't obviously have a full understanding of the what that entails with being so like just hit by the side and just like everything you thought was the way it was is not the way it was. Like I've never had that before, so I know that I'm never gonna do this sort of thing, and she knows it, and she's gotten to the point where she knows she's not gonna do this sort of thing again. So we kind of just like I don't want to be hurt, and I don't want to hurt people like that again. I want to be able to communicate myself or put things to an end when it needs to be put to an end, and not kind of have that be the catalyst for an end of a relationship or whatever. So I think a lot of it has to, or part of it has to do with my previous screw ups, and then especially the screw ups involving her. And it's putting me in a spot where I'm not just expecting her to try to forgive me for the same actions, but now did the same thing I did, and now I have to kind of try to accept that. And I'm seeing how daunting it is, and how excruciating it could be, and how much it is. It's how easy it is to kind of just kick the can down the road like we've been doing, where there's always that looming anxiety, that looming tension that's always there. And it seems like, oh, this is the easier route to go, just kicking it down the road. No, it's not, because you have a consistent amount of anxiety or consistent amount of dread or consistent irritation. And it's not, that's how I've been losing probably like an inch of my hairline the past 4 months, because I'm continually in this state of mind, and I'm just constantly anxious or upset and crying, and then just, wallowing, like you were saying, like wallowing in your own kind of negativity. It's kind of giving myself a justification to not doing it.
Yeah.
And I've been so used to procrastinating as well, so that's kind of like comfort. So
I used to say that I used to call myself a piece of shit. I was like, well, I can't change because I'm a piece of shit. And Vanessa and our friend Carla started saying to me, do you want to ascend or do you want to stay a piece of shit? I mean, obviously they didn't really think I was. It was kind of like teasing me for calling myself that. But yeah, when you talk to yourself that way, you're going to continue that pattern. And that's why I said before about I'm traumatized. Yes, you have traumas that need to be worked through, but also you are a perfect being of love at the same time. Your soul is pure love. You are that as well.
Another
repeat that to yourself constantly.
Another person that I don't know if you've looked into is Dr. Joe Dispenza. And so a lot of his work talks about how when we repeat our stories, when we repeat our traumas, our bodies don't recognize the difference between us having the experience and us just talking about the experience. So you have a traumatic experience and then you tell somebody about that experience. When you're telling the story, your body doesn't know that you're just telling the story. It thinks you're going through it again, and so it releases all of the chemicals, all of the hormones, and then the more you talk about it, the more you refer to it or think about it, the more your body releases those hormones to the point where you become addicted to those hormones, and then you start looking for ways to recreate that trauma so that you could get your fix of those hormones. Which is why learning how to change your language, learning how to change the way you describe yourself, that changes your hormonal profile. It changes the chemicals that are being released in your body, right? So instead of saying I'm a bad guy or I'm a person that's traumatized or all those times that I fucked up, it's all of those lessons I had, right? All of those experiences that I went through that brought me to where I am today. And believe me, I was completely addicted to my pain. I was completely addicted to my health issues. I was always posting about how sick I was, about how depressed I was, about how much I hated life. And I was just digging myself deeper into this hole of depression and anxiety and sorrow and sadness. And it was just, life was so miserable all the time. And once I started shifting that perspective, shifting the way that I spoke about life, about my experiences, I mean, for me to talk about going through some traumatic things as like, oh my God, that was a beautiful experience. I mean, sometimes Danny was like, are you crazy? Like, how would you call that a beautiful experience? But once you start seeing the bigger picture, right? And our work with plant medicines has helped us see that bigger picture of, oh, if I hadn't gone through that trauma, this series of events wouldn't have happened and I wouldn't be where I am now. I would have never had this wonderful experience if that chain of events hadn't happened. And so I wouldn't have learned that lesson if that chain of events hadn't happened. So all of these things become things that I'm grateful for now, and that changes the way I feel about life. That changes the things that I'm attracting to life. Because now I'm looking at them as wonderful experiences, as lessons, as opportunities. There came a time where I would tell Danny, I'm excited when we have a fight, because now that's an opportunity for us to heal another part, right? To clean up that glass a little bit more, get closer together, feel closer, right? Remove another blockage. And that's amazing. That's exciting. And yeah, it's going to suck in the moment because we're going to go through the fight, but afterwards, it's going to feel so much better.
It's like the makeup sex is always good.
Yeah.
After a fight. I mean, that principle really does apply not just to makeup sex, but to life in general, right? Like, it's the contrast of feeling the conflict, and then once you work through the conflict, the love that comes out of that, it's like, beautiful.
You have a deeper appreciation for it.
Yeah, that's great. I'm looking at the time, and it's been an hour and 40 minutes, and I just want to make sure that people can at least try to get through this. I hope that people take the time. I feel like, a lot of it was revolving me, but I'm sure a lot of people have similar situations, and a lot of it was kind of broad.
Yeah,
of course.
Can apply it to anything in their life.
Whoever's meant to
find the time to maybe break it down and watch it in pieces. But as I spoke to you guys before, and you guys were open to it, just the possibility of doing like a weekly or bi-weekly thing, maybe discussing different things, different topics, kind of honing in on it, because we can obviously talk about this forever. I can go on.
Yeah.
So, I just want to thank you guys so much. And if you guys can just write down some of those books again and whatever. Even ones that we didn't even talk about right now, because then I could just post them in the links or the description and all that stuff so people can at least look into it. What was it? The Existential Kink?
Existential Kink, yeah.
Yeah, that's one that I wish you didn't say, because now it's like I kind of want to get it.
You should. It's so good, yeah.
It's a good book. It's a good book. It's a little bit geared towards women, but I read it too, and there was a lot of really good stuff in it.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you guys just want to tell people where they can check you out, and
check out our website, sovereignthecity.com, or sovereignlove.nyc. Either way, you can get to all of our content that way.
Okay, what's the difference between the two? Is that just
So Sovereign in the City is a blog about living off the grid in the city, reducing your dependence on the grid. Sovereign Lovestream is the relationships, or the Love, Sex, and Psychedelics podcast, which is part of the family of Sovereign in the City, I guess you could say. Sovereignlove.nyc will take you directly to the podcast.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I know on the Sovereign in the City you can still access it, but I just clicked on Sovereign Love. Awesome. That looks great. I like that we get to the
Thank
website. You. Enzo, sorry about that. Shout out to Enzo. Thanks for commenting and stuff. Sorry that we didn't
Enzo, if you want to cure your tinnitus, check out Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo. He'll teach you how to use epigenetics and the power of your consciousness to heal anything. There are some amazing stories in that book.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Danny. And I know that we talked about before, like the nonviolent communication and I actually have that on BitChute and stuff. I found the audiobook, and I still haven't listened to the whole damn thing. So it's like even as simple as that, just being able to listen to it. Like I can easily do that, and I've still been procrastinating on that end. So even stuff like that, just communication styles and changing the way you word things can also make a drastic difference, as I'm sure you guys are aware. But yeah, if you guys can just stay on right after, so we can at least discuss for a couple minutes, I would appreciate that. And yeah, thank you for everyone that watched. It's watched right now and is going to watch in the future, and anyone that's commented or done anything to just contribute to this video. I appreciate any comments that people can come up with about maybe some of their own traumas, things they're working through. We can have a nice discussion, create some sort of bond that way, and just help each other out. That's definitely something I definitely would see a lot of value in. So I appreciate everybody for watching, and thank you too for taking the time to come on here and talk with me. It really means a lot. It's really made my day, really made my weekend fantastic. So thank you guys so much, and take care, everybody.
All right, thanks, Nick. We love you.
Love you too. Thank you.